So I just went cold. I went cold in beliefs. I went cold in just believing in certain things, believing whatever. I just went numb. Like I was like, no, this is, I guess this is life. So I'm just gonna just live life. And if it happens, it happens. And
I'm so sorry for your loss, man. That is tough.
yeah, it was, man. It took years. It took years for me to finally heal from it and to finally have an understanding of how life is, of what life's really about, and understanding life and stuff. And that's just not how it is, but it's just how life is. And you're gonna have the good with the bad, and you just have to understand that, it's how you deal with it that's gonna take you to where you need to go in life, and how you overcome it and stuff.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Hey everyone, just want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Sober Strong Apparel. Sober Strong Apparel isn't just lifestyle wear, it's battle gear. We got heavyweight tees, hoodies, and gear for ones who draw a hard line. So if you go to soberstrongapparel.com, use code ROCKBOTTOM, all one word, capital letters, rock bottom, for 15% off. It used to be 10%, now you get 15% off. So check it out. Quality of clothing is amazing. Definitely look into the Impact Sponsorship Program. It's amazing. 10% of all purchases go to treatment facilities. So it's going to a good cause. I love what this company represents. Check out soberstrongapparel.com. Use code ROCKBOTTOM. 15% off, y'all. Enjoy this episode. All right. Welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. I'm here this morning with James Garcia. James, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
Awesome. He's with Mean Mug Pistons. We'll talk about that part later. But first and foremost, since this is a recovery episode we're doing today, I would like to know where you're from, your sober date, what was your drink or drug of choice, all that stuff.
I'm originally and still from Austin, Texas. I was born and raised here. Been here since 1979. I'm still here. I'm actually like, I don't know, like about 10 minutes south of Austin. It's a small little town, but it's considered Austin still. Some people say. Recovery date is 8/22/09. I just celebrated 16 years in August of last year. It's going pretty good. No relapse, so I'm still doing pretty strong and stuff.
I would say that's going strong.
At the time of my addiction, my poison was cocaine. That was my main drug of choice at the time.
Then that coincide with alcohol at the time too?
No, I actually stopped drinking alcohol.
Okay.
It got to the point to where I just wanted to get high because I was able to work better, or so-called work better. I was able to work being on cocaine rather than doing both.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. No, I did cocaine as well. Most of my use somehow would just add on to drinking, but I would do it sober sometimes too and realize I was more productive and got more done, but still, it's still not healthy, right?
Yeah. So with me, it was I would do it when I would drink when I would do coke, and then the last 2 years of my addiction, it got straight into just doing coke. So, because I stopped going out. Like I stopped going out with my friends or going out with anybody. I just pretty much just stayed at home and work at the body shop I was at, and just that's all I did. It's just worked and stayed with my family and just got high. That was my main thing. And every once in a while, when I would go out, of course I have a drink, and of course I would do coke and stuff. But it just got to the point to where I just wanted just to get high, just because I wanted to feel the high of the coke rather than being drunk and high.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hear that a lot too. And a lot of people just doing coke to keep their night going because it's like you drink so much, you want to call it a night, but Coke just extends it longer. But yeah, doing Coke by itself, just also can make you want to drink too, it seems like. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Kind of just doing an upper and a downer and back and forth. And, different for everybody, of course. But yeah, towards the end, when I was trying to cut back on drinking, I was doing a lot more Coke by itself. And I couldn't believe that, honestly. I thought it was only something I would do on just late nights drinking. But yeah, it'll get a hold of you.
Yeah, it sure
But
did. That's how I started. I started just, man, it was great. I think my stories are crazy how I started because I didn't do my first bump until I was like, I want to say like 20, I think like 24, 25. And
yeah,
what was even more crazy is that I used to sell it and I never did it. I
wow.
used to sell it. I sold it before I did it. I just never wanted to do it because I didn't want to get high on my supply.
Yeah,
So I
that's
sold it.
smart.
Then there was just at one point in time where I was at a party and was a homeboy of mine, and I was like, man, I didn't have any, at the time. And all of a sudden, I asked him to do one, to do a bump, and he was like, nah, I don't want to give you one. And I was like, I sold it to you. What the hell you mean? Like you don't want me to? You're not gonna give me one? And then he was like, well, I don't want to be the cause of you starting it. Started doing it,
Yeah,
and so I
I
didn't
was.
do it. I didn't do it until like 4 o'clock in the morning when that's when the party really got going. And of course I did it, and then from there it was just, on the weekends, and then, and then it was like I found out like my uncles and other cousins were doing it during the job, during the work, and I I was like, well, if you're doing it during the day, let me try to do it during the day. And I would do it every occasionally during the day, and then it got to the point where it was like the weekend, and then Monday morning when I woke up, and then let me try Tuesday, and the next thing you know, it got to the point that it was just like all the time. The only time
Jeez.
I didn't do it was on Sundays,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I grew up in in a real religious household, and so I always had that that little devil or whatever, angel, whatever, on my shoulder, talking about, making me feel that if I didn't do it on Sundays, I still had some kind of good moral whatever in my pocket, so I had to do it on Sundays. Until I started doing it on Sundays, that is when it started going downhill.
Yep. No, I get it. I did it kind of the opposite of what you did. I did it for quite a while and then started selling it because I wanted it to, I realized it's expensive. So I just started buying in bulk and then chopping it and cutting it and then selling it to friends and being able to get high for free with a little profit. And I was like, okay. So that worked out a little better because it just got
Yeah.
so expensive. It was like 220 an 8 ball by the time I was like stopping doing it. So I'm like, geez.
Yeah, it was like I towards the last I was spending probably about 300 to 350 bucks a week
Yeah.
and stuff.
Pretty
And then of
insane.
course I was doing it every week and stuff. And then it didn't help that the person that I was getting it from was my cousin, so he was fronting me. So I
Mhm.
just had a running tab. So it was
Yeah.
like, it was like there was no reason why not to do it.
Yeah. Just doing Coke on credit. I get it.
That's basically what it was.
So let's backtrack a little and hear about the early days leading up to all that. What was like your childhood like? Did you have siblings? What was your family dynamic with your parents? How'd that go?
Yeah. So my childhood was I'm a trailer park kid. I grew up in a trailer park for 20 years. I lived in a trailer park for 20 years. But I don't know if familiar with trailer parks. There's actually different sections of trailer parks. You actually do have like I guess you can say the rich part of the trailer park where it's like the triple wides and double wides, really nice trailer park homes. Then you had like your middle class. It was funny because we're all trailer park, but yet they had different classes in it. Well, I
I
ended
had
up
no
growing up
idea that
in
was
the
a thing.
actual I actually grew up in the actual like upper middle class, I guess rich part of the trailer park, which was it's kind of funny when I talk about it.
Yeah, I had no
But
idea.
I come from my parents were cotton pickers. My dad has a ninth grade education, and my mom, she dropped out of school and she was at a young age too. My parents they got young, they got married young. I think my dad was 17 and my mom was 13, turning 14 when they got married. So, and then, as when my dad got older, he ended up opening up a body shop in 70, like 75, 74. So I come from a entrepreneur, self-employment household, a blue collar household, which was my dad. He actually still has his body shop today. Like I'm on break right now. I'm watching his shop while he's actually having surgery. But so I grew up in a blue collar, household. I'm the youngest of four. I have an older sister, older brother, older sister, and then there's me. And like I said earlier, like I grew up in a really religious household. Like we were the radical Pentecostals. We were the type of people that the church that, it was like, there's an old term that says wear your Sundays best. So every Sunday it was like nowadays it would be like a fashion show. Like we had to wear like, button down shirts, like you had to like, dress short, dress slacks and shoes and, like your typical old school Pentecostal churches. Like we're
Yeah.
there like religiously, like mid service, Wednesday night service, Sunday service, and there was prayer meetings, Sunday schools. And like we didn't do anything that wasn't with the actual church. That's all we hung around, like the church people. Like I even went to private school at the same church. And now I can tell you, it was a cult. It was a cult, but it wasn't like a one of them like cults you hear on like TV and stuff, which go bad and like all these you know it's just really bad one and stuff. It was just one where we just stayed with each other, like we stayed in our own little community. Like we that's all we did, and while we did things with other churches and it's like other Pentecostal churches that were in the same organization that we were and stuff. So I mean, I grew up, with the really one track mindset growing up as a kid. Like, this is how it was yes or no. That was it. Like it was like no, I couldn't do it because it went against, the God. Like it was above the devil. You did this, you went to hell. That was my upbringing.
Hmm.
So we had to find a lot of alternative things to do. Like, like I couldn't listen to the music I listen to now, which is called worldly music or music of the world. So we had to find like alternative rap music or alternative,
Yeah.
heavy metal music. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was tough because there wasn't the music that we have now. Like as far as like the hardcore metal bands, like the Christian rock
Yeah.
and
They
stuff
didn't
like
have that
that.
many options.
Yeah, the options were very like very, very minimal. And then you gotta, think about too is that we didn't have like, the internet or, social media. So the only word we got of hearing like other bands, whatever, is when we went to the record stores, like actual record stores, like where albums, and we would read the magazines or we will see who's up and coming and stuff like that. And, I always tell people that I think the lifestyle I grew up in growing up, like I honestly feel that I think Jesus and disciples had more fun than I did growing up because, dude, being a Christian, being in Christianity in the 80s and 90s, bro, it was rough. Like it was literally like Old Testament. Like, it was literally like eye for an eye. Like it was straight like, yes, no, you did this, or you had sex and you're not a virgin anymore. You're going to go to hell if you don't marry her. She's pregnant. Your kids are going to be a bastard if So that was my childhood growing up until I say about 15, 16, my parents decided to leave the church that we're attending. So, some stuff happened within the actual church of my family. And, that I think my parents, still today that I'm glad they left because if they didn't, it wouldn't have left. I wouldn't be who I am today. Like, I think I would have been worse off as far as like
Yeah.
what I believe and what I see and stuff. And I really think that I would have been more of the actual, like, I don't know, like the radical people that are now still being like really crazy and stuff about certain things. And so, that was, when I was 16, my parents decided to leave the church. So that was about 95, 96. And that was about the time when a lot of these churches, that was when a lot of the non-denomination churches were up and coming, where people were leaving like their Baptist church, leaving their Pentecostal churches, the Church of Christ and Catholic Church, and this whole movement of non-denomination was coming into effect to where there wasn't you didn't have a denomination, you just had a certain belief of who Jesus and God was, and you just kind of just went off that.
Yeah.
that is where I see life and how things are started, of how seeing life is and how the world really is and stuff.
Did growing up in that atmosphere kind of make you have the desire to rebel at all growing up?
Yes, it did. Like it really did, but I mean, I went through a rebellious stage, but I was smart about it. I wanted to be smart because I knew that if I got in trouble, I would lose things. And I didn't want to be and I didn't want to miss out. Like I wanted to hang out with my friends. I wanted to be at school with my friends, and I wanted to still do things. So I just got, I guess it would be the hustler mentality that I have now. I started then that I just wanted to do smart moves so I wouldn't get caught or do things certain way and stuff. So it was like me and my other buddies, we just figured out how to, you know, talk certain way and get our way with our parents so that they would believe us. And we were being rebellious, but we were doing it the smart way. We didn't want to, we didn't want to get caught. I mean, we got caught a few times, but it just taught us what not to do next time
Yeah.
and stuff. And then I went to private school, all the way up until my junior year, which was like 97. And then, life got, um, life got really hard at the time when I was like 16, 17, about but right when I turned 17 to 18 is when life got a little difficult for me.
What happened?
Because when I was coming up, I was an artist. Like I love to draw and do a lot of like actual like pencil drawings and stuff. I would enter art contests all the time and I would win and all this stuff. So growing up, I had a dream that I always wanted to be an artist because I loved the whole like cartoons and I just grew up watching them and I love drawing and stuff. And, being the baby of a family, especially in a blue collar household, we weren't never really taught or be in the environment of being around college or being like college life and stuff. So men were just trained to go straight into trades. Like that was the rule. Like that was just how it is. Like whatever my dad did, either I did what my dad did or I was going to go find an actual trade. My
Okay.
household, my dad was like, you're not going to work fast food. You're not going to be a waiter. You're not going to work at a city. You're going to learn a trade. You're not going to be, like a janitor. You're not going to be a custodian. You're not going to do
Okay.
any of those easy, in his words at the time, where like, you're not going to do them lazy ass, easy ass jobs where you're just going to be a 9 to 5, clock in, clock out. I'm not going to have that. I'm not raising pussies. I'm going to raise you
Yeah.
to be men. You're going to learn how to do with your hands. So
Okay.
growing up, I was either, I was going to be an artist or I was going to go into some blue collar trade, which is welding or be a mechanic or bodyman. So as I was getting older and getting better in my artwork and stuff, I won a few contests and stuff. I was probably like 15, 16. The first time the first time my dream actually got shot down was I actually had this company come in from Chicago and wanted to like talk to my parents and wanted to talk to me because they wanted to hire me to be one of their artists for the company and stuff. But I had to pay for certain curriculums because I had to get better at certain techniques. So it was kind of like a small little college time. And my sister that's older than me, one next to me, she was in college. And it was like, I think for me to do this class, it was going to be, I think like $200-300 a month. And in the 90s, $300 was a lot, especially
Mm-hmm.
come blue collar, a single income family. And then my dad was paying for my sister's college, all out. So it got shot down because he was like, I can't pay for, he goes, your sister's college is more important. I can't pay for her and you. And plus you're young, so you still have time to do what you want to do and you'll probably phase out of it. So I was like, all right, that was my first shot at in my dream being shot down. And
Yeah.
so
I'm sure that hurt.
that put a scar, like a pretty deep wound in me that, it took time to heal as I got older. And then, so I went on by that. I kind of put my art stuff to the side just because I knew it wasn't gonna go anywhere. So I just kind of I would doodle and draw here and there and stuff. And then, at the time, I didn't know I had ADHD, but now that I'm older, I know I have it.
Yeah.
So I had to find things to way to keep me busy. So I got into sports. I got really good at baseball and then I got really good at basketball. And
Nice.
then strike two came was when uh, uh, baseball, and at the time in the 90s, once you got to junior high, there was no more baseball in schools. You got to high school. Well, me growing up in going to a private school, we didn't have any of those sports. We didn't have baseball and all that stuff. And then my parents were so religious into the doctrine of what they believed in. Public schools were like evil. They're
Yeah.
like of the devil. Like, you're not going to public school because of what they preach and what they teach and this and that. And so my shot of even going into public school to play baseball, whatever, was shot down again. Even basketball was shot down, like, because they weren't going to put me in public school. So my dream of even becoming even somewhat a sports athlete was shot down again.
It's gotta hurt.
So that was strike one and strike two, and that was within like from 15 to 16. And then, man, I had one more shot of becoming something in basketball. I mean, not like, NBA style, but enough to where I could get into maybe a low D1, hell, maybe even a D1 school at the time. And it got to the point to where I was going to have to drive 30 minutes to the school every day, there and back. So it was an hour. And my dad flat out was like, who's going to pay for gas? And I was like, he was like, I said, well, I can if I get a job. And he was like, well, how are you going to get a job if you have to drive to practice and you have to be involved with the school and stuff? And you can't do both and stuff. So, in other words, he said it again. He was like, I can't pay for gas because I got to pay for your sister's college. And so I was like, well,
Jeez.
all right. And so that was it. Dude, that was it. I was like 17 and I was like, dreams are shut. Like, you know what? I'll just put all that beside me. I'll just bury it because I'm never going to achieve my dreams with my sister being in college, and, I'm never going to be it. So I was forced into the trades, and then
How come?
I went through a rebellious stage. I won't say rebellious, but I didn't want to be home anymore. Like, I just couldn't be home because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do with my life. So I
Yeah.
tried, so I traveled. I was like, I talked to my parents and I dropped out of school when I was 18. My in middle of my junior year, and I dropped out, and uh, I tried going to this one Bible college to maybe get into being a music producer, but it didn't. It turned out to be that it was just I just wanted just to, like, I was thrown into a life that I didn't know of. Like, I thought it was a Bible college or a Christian college, but that's only from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then you have the rest of the day and night to do whatever. And so that was when I actually got introduced to like other environments,
Yeah.
like other people, like, other people that weren't really, doctrined and pushed into a certain religion, and that were living a certain other way, but yet they were doing this thing. And that was the first time I was able to taste like the world life, I guess you can call it, and stuff. And so I
Wow.
traveled, till I was like 19. My dad gave me my inheritance, which was like, I think he gave me like 20 grand. Like, I think it was like, yeah, it was like 18 grand. He put it in a money order. He put it in the savings, and then my mom gave me a money order, and then I bounced, bro. I moved. I took off to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was like 18, 19, and I was living up there with a buddy of mine that I met in college. And then that didn't last, maybe like 3 months, bro. Yeah, because yeah, I was like 90. That was like 97, and that was the first time I ever felt racism. I ever felt I felt the actual uh the wrongness of being the wrong color, I guess you want to call it. I grew up
Really?
in Austin in the 90s and the 80s and 90s. There wasn't, you never felt the having being the wrong color. Like, yeah, you had your blacks and whites and, different neighborhoods and stuff, but you never felt being being outcasted. Like, that wasn't,
Yeah.
you just never heard of, like, not in the town. we grew up in. We just didn't. And it
What
wasn't
was your
until I
first
went up there
experience with
and,
that?
huh?
What was your first experience kind of noticing that it was, being a different color and like how people treated you? What was your first like experience like?
Trying to get a job. So before I left, of course I dropped out of school, whatever this and that, but I ended up getting jobs here in Austin. I was working at the YMCA, and dude, I was full certified. I was like a camp counselor. I was working front desk. Like I was working with kids. I had all the certifications you can think of, just because you work with kids, and it was a great job. And so I had all the certifications. And then even at the time, I was working at Foot Action, being selling shoes, and I was like their top seller. Like I got all these awards and stuff in Foot Action and stuff. So when I moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana, they had a YMCA, they had a Foot Action. So I was like, bet. So my bosses gave me an actual like a recommendations letter, this and that, whatever, this and that. And I moved up there, and dude, there wasn't brown people like me. There wasn't Native Americans. There wasn't
Wow.
indigenous. There wasn't Hispanics up there. I was very rare. And so when I would walk in to ask for applications or tell them what's going on, like, always have to ask twice. And then I always have to give reasoning why I wanted a job or why I was looking for here. And it was like I had to like always try to prove myself to them. And then it was just like I just kept getting denied and denied and denied. And then one of them were like, "Well, you're too overqualified. We can't have you working here." And then there was one. I think I went and applied at Arby's, bro. I went and applied at Arby's, and they said that I was too overqualified, and um, their customers wouldn't approve of me serving their food. Flat out told me that,
That's horrible.
and it was a black guy. It was a black guy that told me that. I remember that. I was like, "What?"
Jeez.
He was like, "Look, man, I'm just being honest with you. Like, he was like, I've been a manager here for 6 years, and it takes a lot. It took a lot for me to get this position, and I can be honest with you, like the customers that come in, they won't approve of a guy like you serving their food or even cooking their food and stuff." And it was crazy because like even
Unbelievable.
like in the Arby's and stuff, all their people that worked there were black and white. Like the cooks, whoever did the stuff, were all blacks and whites.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it was, but that was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It was nuts. So I stayed there for like 3 months. Didn't work out. I was just draining my savings. And then me and my roommate had a falling out. Like we had like an argument because he was like, you got to get a job, this, not whatever. We had a huge like falling out and stuff, argument and stuff.
Yeah.
And at the time, my roommate, his license was suspended because he was going through some license stuff. So I had to drive him around like everywhere. I was like his personal chauffeur or whatever.
Yeah.
And he got me like we got in a huge argument. Like he made me like, he pissed the hell out of me. Dude. Like I was mad as fuck. And so I knew he had to work a double the next day. And so we got in an argument the night before. I ended up going down to our local pool hall, local bar, and I made a few phone calls, and I arranged some things so that I can come back. And so the next day, woke up and nothing happened. I took his ass to work like at 9 in the morning. I came home, and the night before I packed all my shit up, like everything that I could pack in 3 duffel bags. In Fort Wayne, up there they had hockey. Like it was really big. So you can go
Yeah.
to you can go to your local academy and get a big hockey bag, like a big duffel bag to put all your hockey stuff in. So I bought 3 of them,
Yeah.
like big ass bags. So I bought 3 of them, and I loaded as much of my shit I could into those 3 bags. And I ended up leaving a few things. Took his ass to work, came back home, packed all my shit up in his car, drove to the airport, parked his car in long, parked his car in a long-term parking lot with a note on the actual windshield saying that the car is parked. This car belongs to so and so. Give him a call. Let him know it's this and that, whatever. Went into the airport, bought me a one-way ticket back to Dallas, Texas, where my sister was living because it was cheaper to fly into Dallas. Flew back home. Stayed with her for like I don't know 6 months, just trying to figure out life. And
Yeah.
then that was it, bro. Like I went through all my money, the car that I had. I ended up wrecking it in Dallas. I called my dad, and my dad was like, "That's it. I ain't giving you nothing." Because
Dang.
he goes, "You got two options. Either you stay there, you figure it out, or you bring your ass home and you start working for me." And so I was, 18, turning 19. So I was like, all right. So I, tucked my tail into my legs and came back home. And at 19 years old is when I decided to go into the actual trades of being a bodyman, like an actual auto body technician. Like, you wreck it,
Nice.
I fix it. In other words, I tell people that I make your car look pretty. That's what I do for a living. And so
How did
at
you
19,
enjoy it at first, or did it feel like you were just doing it because it was a last resort, or did you start to enjoy it?
I did it as a last resort because, I can say I tried every other job. I tried every job on the planet, just trying to figure out what I would be good at. And nothing really grabbed my mind as bodywork, as doing bodywork did. Nothing really like got me to zone in and to be focused on something. Like I tried welding. I loved welding, but the fact of just doing the same type of work every day, welding a pipe or welding whatever, it just wasn't me. I knew I was gonna get tired of it pretty soon, but I felt that once I got into the actual into the body shop and fixing cars and figuring out what's wrong with them and taking mangled up cars and straightening them all out and making them pretty again and putting them back on the road, like it just did something. It in other words, it awakened the artistic side that I killed, like that I put on the back burner or covered up. Like it rebirthed it at the time, and I stayed in it. I stayed in it until 19. I was in it, and then that's when I think I was like 2021 is when I started going downtown and started discovering the whole like bar scene and that new world that I only saw on TV and movies and stuff, and starting to realize that it was actually real life. Like it was true, like uh, all the drugs, the alcohol, the girls, the partying, and
Yeah.
then it turned into, well, you know what? I could go downtown and get customers to come to my shop, and then that's how it started. Another thing started where that's how I got known downtown and different bars and bar owners and stuff was where I would go downtown with 25 business cards and pass them all out. And come Monday and Tuesday, I would have 5 new customers every single time.
Wow.
I had this old school businessman tell me that. He goes, every time I go out downtown or go on a weekend somewhere, I take 25 to 30 business cards. He goes, I pass them all out. He goes, I can guarantee you'll have at least 4 to 5 new customers calling you by Wednesday. And sure enough, dude,
That's
it
awesome.
works. Still today, it works. Like I don't know how, but it does. So I did that.
Wow.
So I was doing both. So I was doing the body shop, being a body man, learning how to be it, and then working downtown in the bar. I started as a bar back, and then I slowly became like a bar back bartender, and still doing both. So I was juggling both. I was doing the body shop during the day, and then bartending, bar backing on the weekends, and then drugs came involved, and then I was like, oh, this is a whole nother level and
Yeah.
stuff.
So you basically were able to combine working in the body shop and party and be able to promote the business at the same time and all that.
Yeah,
So
it's just correlated together. Like everything just meshed together. And it really does because, a lot of the people that messed their cars up was either drunk or they were downtown or they were at happy hour or they were somewhere. So I've realized that there was a market in actually marketing going downtown or being in those environments to where, somebody's going to end up getting their car wrecked and whether that night or the next night. And they were like, "Oh man, you know what? I remember I met this guy last night at happy hour, and I got his business card." And so so it got to the point to where I had to go downtown. I had to go out because I needed new customers. Like I molded that as my business model. Like I could not go downtown or not go to happy hour or I couldn't go to this party or event because if I didn't go, I wasn't going to get noticed, or I wasn't going to get any new customers. And so that was like how I conditioned and made my mind believe that that was the only way that I was going to create a living and be successful and stuff.
Wow. Okay. So how did all that start to progress into when, say, drinking, and when did cocaine come into the mix and all that? When did it start to kind of get out of control? 05.
December 16th, 2005 is when my best friend died. So I was 24, and I just turned 25 in September. My birthday is on the 15th of September. And I remember we that was like the last time we really partied and hung out, was on my birthday. And then his birthday is in November on the 23rd. And then I didn't get to see him, but I talked to him. I think we talked for about, I don't know, a couple of hours, whatever, on his birthday. And then he died on a Saturday. And then the Wednesday, he died on a Saturday on the 16th. So Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, so that's 15th. So on the 13th, he came to my shop and we hung out, bro, for like 3.5 hours. Like, he came in because he was having a problem with his door handle, and something that should have took maybe like 15 minutes to fix it. I couldn't fix it. Like, I couldn't figure out what was going on. So he ended up just hanging out. We hung out for 3.5 hours, just cutting it up, cracking jokes, having a badass time. At the time, we're both smoking. I think we smoked a joint one last time together, while we're hanging out and stuff. And then that was the last time I saw him. Like, that was the last time I saw him. I fixed his truck and stuff, and then he was leaving. And then right before he left, he rolled his window down and was like, "Hey man, I just want to tell you that I really appreciate your friendship and I really love you. And I'll see you when I come back." He said, "I'll be back Saturday morning so we can go to the concert on Saturday." So I was like, "All right, bet. I'll see you then." So never went to the concert. Friday, I was waiting for his phone call. Never called. I called him, and went straight to voicemail. I left a few voicemails, see what was going on and stuff. And because he wasn't one that didn't call. He wasn't the one that didn't show up. He was always pretty on point about
Reliable.
it. Reliable stuff. And then I get a phone call Sunday morning, like at 4 a.m. on my cell phone. It was my dad. And the only time my parents call me that early is when there's a death. And my dad called me, and what's even more crazy is that my dad is a pastor, is a Spanish pastor, and my best friend's dad was the lead pastor of an English church that my dad and his dad preached together at. So we're both, I guess you can say, we're both preachers' kids and stuff.
Yeah.
And so my dad called me and told me that he died. He died in Chicago. He was in Chicago for work, and his boss forgot to, or somehow didn't buy them a returning ticket, only actually bought them a one-way ticket. So they had to wait until Saturday to fly back. So Friday night, him and his coworkers went out to eat, whatever this and that. And while they were running late to catch a train in Chicago, they have those train tracks where they have multiple train tracks stacked up next to each other. Like, there isn't like, there's just a bunch of them, and then you can actually like walk across them, I believe, and there isn't any like signs or bells saying when another train's coming. So him and his buddies were running because they were running late to catch a train to go, I think, into town, or I can't remember. So it was him and 5 of his coworkers. So there's 6 of them. They were running, trying to catch a train, and my friend was the last one on the end. And as they were running to cross the tracks, the first guy noticed the train was coming and stopped. And by the time he stopped, saw the train and looked over, my buddy didn't stop in time, and pretty much just ran out in front of the train and got, disintegrated.
Freak accident. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was literally a freak accident. And that's how he died. He literally just got ran over, got hit by a train, and just like body parts, they said, went everywhere. his parents said, his dad said they got his remains in a box. It was literally in a box. It was literally like in
Unbelievable.
he said it was like a 4x8 box, or like a container of the body parts that they could put in the actual casket and
That
stuff.
is heartbreaking. I'm so sorry.
So that was in '05, man. At the time I was, dabbing in drugs, doing ecstasy here and there, or doing a little bit of coke, and nothing out of hand. It wasn't until, when he died, and it's just like, it really fucked me up, man. Like, it messed me up mentally, because growing up like I said, I grew up in a real religious and spiritual household, where my dad was a Spanish pastor and his dad was the lead pastor of the church. And I really had a belief in God and Jesus and all this stuff. And that's when I didn't have hatred towards God or Jesus. It was just, I had really had hatred of why. Like, why is this happening? Why did this happen to this person? Why
Yeah.
would you why would you do this? When these men, the fathers, are so loyal and so committed to serving you. Like,
Yeah.
why? That was my biggest thing, was why. So I didn't have a hatred. I was just upset and disappointed. I had a huge disappointment in God. Huge. Like, I was disappointed. Cause then I got to
Understandable.
points, I was like, if it can happen to him, it can happen to me. Like, it can literally happen to anybody. Like, I knew I was 24 or 25. So I kind of really knew that it could happen to anybody, but it just hit too close to home, like, for it to happen. And I was like, damn. So I was like, well, so what's the point? What's the point of being so gun ho about certain things, or being gun ho about whatever, when it can literally happen to my dad, or it can literally happen to my mom or my brother, or anybody that's, serving you, whatever. So I just
Yeah.
went cold. I went cold in beliefs. I went cold in just believing in certain things, believing whatever. I just went numb. Like, I was like, this is, I guess this is life. So I'm just gonna just live life. And if it happens, it happens. And
I'm so sorry
so,
for your loss, man. That is tough.
yeah, it was, man. It took years. It took years for me to finally heal from it, and to finally have an understanding of how life is, or what life's really about. And understanding life and stuff, and that just not how it is, but just how life is. And you're gonna have the good with the bad, and you just have to understand that, it's how you deal with it that's gonna that's gonna take you to where you need to go in life, and how you overcome it and stuff. And at the time I didn't know, but until later on, like, his death and how I saw things and what I was going through was gonna was a catalyst of how who I am now, and how I am sober, and how I am seeing life and doing life, and trying to help others as much as I can, and dealing with life situations, and just life in general, because life's already fucked up as it is. Life's already messed up. Like, the world
Yeah.
we live in, what things are, it's already a hellhole. So there's no point of us trying to make it worse. It really isn't. Like, we literally choose how we live our life every day, and how we're going to choose to react and overcome certain things. And
Yeah.
and so I just decided at the time just to go numb and everything. And that is when,
So drinking,
yeah,
using.
so I started drinking a little heavy more. I wasn't a beer drinker. I never really liked beer. So I would drink vodka and Sprite. I would drink Grey Goose. Grey Goose
That
and
was my
Sprite.
drink of choice for a long time.
And then my shots, or my hard liquor, was Jägermeister. Like, those were my two drinks. I would take Jägermeister shots, or just all the time. So that was like, I would have my drink of vodka and Sprite. And then if I wanted a shot, I would just take a shot of Jägermeister. And it got to the point to where, me and my wife, now at the time girlfriend, we would, buy a bottle of Grey Goose and a bottle of Jaeger. And, it would last us all week. And then it got to the point to where it was lasting us the weekend. And then it got to the point to where I would just finish it in one night,
Yep.
you know?
Progressive. Yeah.
Yeah, it just got progressive, and then it got to the point to where, you know what, I want more. So then that was when the actual cocaine slowly started coming in, and then I realized that hell, I can drink because I can do drug, I can drink more and stuff if I would just do more coke. And then it's just like, and then it was like all of it just started like meshing together. Then it was like, well, if I go out more and party more, I can get more customers, but I would have to be out there more.
Have
So
to
in
do
order
more
for me to be
coke.
out there more and to drink more, I would have to do whatever. So then it just everything like at the time, everything just felt like it just started working out together. Like,
Made
if I did more
sense. Yeah.
drugs, oh, then I'll go into these parties and meet these people, and we can do drugs and drink whatever, and then I'll get their customers, in which I did. It was crazy because I would by me doing all that, the fruits of it, I would get new customers and stuff because it was just
Yeah.
starting to become a cycle. It would
Yeah.
become a cycle of I would just make more money to spend the money more. I would make more money and then spend more. And I would just make more money. So I would just, in other words, I was just working and making just to make, just to use it more.
Making
And it
more to
just
spend
started,
more. Yeah.
yeah. And it just got out of hand and stuff. And then, I mean, it got pretty out of hand. And then in 2008, how can I say this? A lot happened. My wife at the time, uh, we were dating. When I was like 21, 22. And then I wasn't even like, ready for a relationship. So we broke up. We went on our ways and stuff. And then we both ended up having kids from other partners and stuff. And then like, mine was just a straight up like just it was just a booty call, bro. That's all it was. It was just you want to call up. It was like, hey, you want to get high and have sex. And that's all it was.
Hmm.
100% was. There was no dating. There was no going to dinner. It was just straight up
Let's hook
speed
up.
dial.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, I'm at this hotel. Why don't you come up and we'll link up? And that's all what it was, and so I ended up, that night. I don't even. I still till today I don't remember the night and stuff. And so I ended up we both having kids from separate relationships and stuff, and went our own ways. And that was about 2 years, and then we ended up linking back up when I was like 26, 27. So my oldest son, I'm not his biological dad, which is my wife's first son. His dad was murdered when he was 4 months, and I came in the picture when he was 15 months, and I've been his dad ever since.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not his dad, I'm his father. That's what he says. So during that time, I was, with my wife and raising their son together, and so I was still we were still kind of partying, doing things here and there. And then they got to the point to where, and then my wife got pregnant with our daughter, and that was like 2008. And then that is when the shifts went from me not going out anymore and just working and getting high. Cause I was like, okay, I have a daughter now, I have my son, and I had this other daughter that I got to pay child support on. So now I have three kids I have to take care of. And so it was literally New Year's Eve of 2007 to 2000. No, sorry. New Year's Eve 2008 to 2009 was when I was like, I'm not going to go out anymore. I'm just going to work
Yeah.
and just work. And so I did that. I just worked. And then it got to the point to where that's when I started doing the cocaine during the week, during the day. Cause I figured that, hey, I can stay at the shop longer and work.
Yeah.
And so I
Get
did
more
that.
done, take more customers.
Yeah, yeah. I can take more customers. I can work longer. I can actually work late. I can get a job in on a Monday and have it out by Wednesday, so I can get paid faster. And
Yeah.
so that was when my work ethic of just nonstop working, 100 miles an hour rev limiter came from. Of just working.
Sorry, you have an incoming call. So
See?
you had an incoming call, so it stopped. You might have to repeat what you said just now.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. So and then it. Trying to think. So then it got out of hand again. So I got locked up in '08, Yeah, I got locked up in '08. My daughter was like 2 weeks old, and I had child support court on a Friday, and then I got locked up because she didn't want to wait for the money, and so they locked me up. I was locked up for like a month, and bro, I was locked up in the high risk tank for some reason. They literally put me in a tank with like murderers, drug dealers and stuff. And my actual bunkie, the guy sitting laying or next to me, he actually killed a pedophile. Like I had a pedophile killer. Like
Wow.
it was pretty intense. And I learned
Yeah.
a lot from him just in life in general and stuff. He's actually still serving time right now and stuff. So anyway, so it was, dude, it was a lot that happened. Like a lot of stuff was happening. So that was in '08. I got locked up. I came out. I was clean for a little bit 'cause I was locked up for like a month
Yeah.
and stuff. I think I was clean maybe max of maybe 2 months. And then I was like, fuck, I gotta get back to work. I gotta start grinding. So I got back on it again. Like I got back on on the coke and stuff. And then that is when it started snowballing. That is when it started going from being like 60, $70 a week to $100 a week to 120 to 150. And then it
Yeah.
started rising and stuff. And then 2009 came of, and then I think my wife finally had it. We were just bouncing from apartment to a house, living with people and stuff. And then after I got locked up, I ended up moving into my dad's shop at the time because my dad had
Hmm.
a little apartment that he just kind of had made there and stuff.
Yeah.
I was staying there, and my wife was like, "I'm not moving in here until you quit doing drugs, whatever." And then I was like, "Well, I'll stop when you move in. Like that's when
Yeah.
I'll stop because I know you're serious." And she was like, "Well, I'm not moving in." And I was like, and so it was back and forth. So she stayed. She took the kids. She took the kids and the dogs. Bounced. Took off. Took the kids and the dogs to her mom's, and I would go pick her up on the weekends. She'll come home. I'll come back to the apartment. We're hanging out, and that went on for maybe like a month or two, and it just got to the point where it was just too much. It was just too much for just for me. Like I had way too much freedom. I was just constantly getting high. That's all I did, bro, was just get high. Like I would just work, and then it got to the point to where my cousin would just come drop it off. Like I wouldn't have to drive. Like he goes like, I'll roll by. I'll go drop it off. I was like, bet. So I just literally stayed in the apartment in the shop and just got high 24/7. 24/7. Monday through Friday, I got high. And then the last time I would get high in the week was like on a Friday at 3 because I would go pick up my wife and kids in up north in a small town, which is about 30 minutes from where I was at. So
Yeah.
I would go pick them up on Friday evening and then we'd drive back and, I would just chill out for Saturday and Sunday, then take her back home.
Would you
And
crash
it
during
was,
that period if you weren't using, or
huh?
would you crash during that period while you were with her because you'd
Yeah.
stop
I
using?
would
Yeah.
crash hard.
Yeah.
I remember there was one time I went and picked her up Friday. And I literally picked her up, and we were literally driving out of my mother-in-law's neighborhood, and we weren't even like we literally just left her my mother-in-law's neighborhood, our house, and we were leaving the neighborhood, and I literally like passed out, like I was driving, and I just knocked out and woke up and kind of hit the curb, and she's like, "What the hell's going on? Are you all right?" I was like, "She's like, can you even drive? What's wrong? Are you that tired?" I was like, "Yeah, I won't be able to drive home." So she had to drive home, and when she got in the driver's seat and drove home, dude, I passed out. Like I don't remember. All I remember is I fell asleep in my mother-in-law's neighborhood, and then I woke up in the parking lot of our shop. She was already out of the truck. Like she left me in there. She was so pissed off.
Jeez.
Left me in there,
Jeez.
and it was crazy because that was like the week before I had my spiritual awakening and got clean and sober.
All right. Describe that moment. What happened? What led up to that? And how'd that happen?
And then so one of my good friends at the time was getting married. And so he was getting married at this Catholic church. This story is pretty intense, like how everything happened and stuff. So he was getting married at this Catholic church on a Saturday, which was the following Saturday. And I remember my wife was telling me when I was dropping her off that the weekend before, she was like, "Hey, we have so and so's wedding next weekend. Will you be able to?" She was like, She was like, "Will you be able to function? Are you gonna be okay to take us if we go?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be fine. I'll make sure I'm okay. Nothing will happen." So she was like, "All right." And I even remember like during that week, she reminded me. She was like, "Hey, just let me know that I really want to go to so and so's wedding, and I want to go. Like, but I really want to be there." And I was like, "All right, I'll make sure we'll go." So that was on a Saturday leading up to it. So I made it a point to uh, stop doing anything Thursday night or Friday at noon. I was like, I'm not gonna do anything past Friday. Like I'll stop because I want to be functional because I have to go pick them up Friday evening, this, that, whatever. So so I was like, you know what? If I'm not gonna do anything like my usual schedule, I'm just gonna bump it up. So I just I just binged, bro. Like I think from like Monday, I started Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think I maybe slept maybe a total of like maybe like 30 hours from like Monday to like Friday. Cause I remember the last time I actually slept was Tuesday night. Cause Wednesday I went and got some dope and I stayed up all Wednesday night and I worked Thursday. I think I took a little nap Thursday, woke up again, started doing whatever work. And then I think the last time I did a line was Friday morning at like 6:30 in the morning, like right after I brushed my teeth. Cause there was something about after I brushed my teeth and took a shower and doing a line of coke right after you brush your teeth. I don't know what it was. It was just it was just something I like doing, and so I did it.
Yeah.
And so I was okay, and I didn't do anything. I think the last time I felt really high was like at noon Friday, and so I was like okay. Then I took a little nap Friday afternoon before I went to pick her up, so I can be somewhat functional and awake. Went and picked her up and stuff, and then Friday night, I felt a little weird. Like I felt like, like complications, like my chest was kind of hurting, this, that, whatever. And, I think nothing of it and stuff. And then, uh, I went and picked her up and we came home and stuff and woke up Saturday morning, went to the wedding and stuff. And in the actual church that she was getting married at, it was a Catholic church that was on the east side of town. And I was sitting down in this one pew right next to the stained glass and stuff. And mind you, remember that I grew up in the church. I grew up knowing God and knowing about God. And so at this time I was 28. Yeah, I was 28 years old. So I went numb in my beliefs at 25 after my friend died. So for the last 4 years, I just iced God and belief and moral and things like that. And so but I grew up in the church and I grew up in the church setting, going to church, respecting the pastor, respecting certain priest stuff, whatever, and as we were sitting down in the actual wedding, once the actual priest started, I guess, speaking, bro, I just could not, like, I just couldn't listen to him. Like everything he was saying, like my spirit was just didn't want to listen to it. So I was, making my kids kind of laugh, cracking jokes and this, that, whatever, like just doing whatever I could to not pay attention to what the actual priest was saying because I just didn't want to hear it. Like I didn't want to be there, but I was there because I was there for my wife and my friend at the time for the wedding. And it didn't take until my wife looking over at me and saying, for somebody that grew up in the church, you sure ain't acting like it. And when she said those words did something. It broke something in my mind to release something. It released the fact, it released a hold on me of seeing what I was doing. So it was seeing what I iced for 4 years. Like I was in the church, the priest was saying things that I guess the demon of addiction was holding me for so long, for 4 years, that it wasn't allowing me to hear any kind of like anything like that until I was in that church and my wife said those words. It broke it. Like it broke the scales off my eyes to hear what he was saying enough to start it doing something in me. like mentally and spiritually. And so I was like, so when she said that, I kind of sat back and I was like, damn, like, yeah, I guess, like, I never realized that I was being that way. And so the wedding went on and then it ended. And then as it ended, the groom and bride walked out. And then as we were walking out of the church, I started feeling like a heaviness in my chest and stuff. In my head, I thought I was ODing again because I OD'd twice in the past.
Yeah.
So I thought I was ODing again. I felt the symptoms of me ODing, like just short of breath. I started getting really like really bad cramps in my fingers. Like I was getting really slow in my steps. But what was weird was that I started getting cold sweats, and I never had that. And as I was getting closer to the foyer of going outside the church, I felt something really pulling me back, like was trying to hold me in, like was trying to hold me in. And I thought it was my son behind me or my daughter or whatever. And nobody was behind me because I was like the last person to walk out. And as I got closer and closer to the actual foyer to go outside, and as soon as I got to the foyer, I felt like this numbness in my body, and I got really cold, and I started sweating real bad. And as soon as I walked outside the church, I felt something like it felt like something went through me, but it was something that was taken out of me. Like if something was gone. Like I
Wow.
literally felt something being released from me, was taken out. And when I walked outside, bro, like I literally like I felt I kind of had to sit down real quick because if there wasn't like this little bench, I would have fell like flat. So I sat down and then I felt nauseous. I had like beads of sweat on my lip and on my nose, and I never get that. And my wife was like, "What the hell's wrong with you? What's wrong?" I was like, "I don't know. I feel sick. Like I just feel like I feel like something like like came out of me. Like I feel weird. I don't know what's going on. Like I feel like I can't describe it." So she was like, "Well, let's go to the gas station next door and get you some crackers or something, just so to get you going until we get to the reception. Then you get some food and stuff." So I was like,
Yeah.
"Ah, it's fine." So we get in the car, and I felt my spirit telling me, "You need to call your dad. Call your dad." And remember, my dad's also a recovering addict. At the time, my dad was sober. I think like 40 years already, like 35 years. He's already been sober 40 years. He's already been sober. And so I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna call my dad. For some reason, I felt the need to call my dad. So I called my dad on our way to the actual gas station. And I called him. I was like, Dad, I was like, something told me to call you and to tell you what happened to me. He goes, what's going on? So I told him exactly what was going on. And he was like, he goes, what church were you at again? And I told him, I was like, I was at this Catholic church called Dolores Catholic Church. And he was like, he goes, listen to me very carefully. He was like, where were you sitting at? And I told him where I was sitting at. He goes, were you sitting next to this glass, this stained glass with this picture on it? I was like, yeah. That's exactly where I was sitting at. And he was like, all right, listen to me. These next 5 minutes can be the most important words you're ever going to hear from me. I was like, all right. He was like, what happened to you happened to me 35 years earlier, identical to the T. He was like,
Really?
the story that I told you how when you were younger, how I was at this one church and, I felt something, literally come out of me and this and that, whatever. And what you described, it happened to me 35 years earlier. He was like,
That's crazy.
he goes, what you are feeling right now, he was like, you are feeling the hand of God completely removed from you. He was like, the demon of addiction is completely out of you. He's like, right now, he's like, you're like a free agent. He's like, you don't know where you're going to go. You don't know what's going to happen to you. He was like, your spirit is literally looking for somewhere to go, but you have a shield. You have a shield for the next 24 hours until you decide which path you want to go on. He was like, it's very rare that many people get this opportunity to where you literally have a chance to literally pick life or death, but it's up to you. You have the free will and choice to do it. He was like, so these next 24 hours are going to be very, very critical of what you want to do for the rest of your life. He was like, so I highly advise of you to go home tonight. And when you sleep, really, really pay attention to the dreams that you're going to have. And I was like, all right, whatever, Dad, I'll whatever. So I kind of blew it off, but then again, it was still in the back of my head, bro.
That is so insane. Oh my gosh.
And so I go home,
Blows
you
my
know, I
mind.
tell my wife what's going on, and my wife was like, whatever, you know, you're fucking high, you're fucking addict, this, that, whatever. You know what? She had every right to be, you know, she had every right to be, you know, who she was. Like, she had every right to have that emotion towards me because, you know, she just did because I was an addict. I didn't give a care about anybody else, whatever this and that. So anyway, so we go home and dude, I go home and I'm just like, out of it is an understatement. Like I was out of it. Like I literally felt that I was walking outside of time. Like I knew I was there, but everything else was slow moving. Like I was there in life, I was seeing things happening, but everything was just like going slow. And I remember my wife telling me, she was like, "What's wrong with you?" She was like, I know you're not high, but I just can't figure out what's wrong with you. You look different. Like your eyes look like they're missing something. She was like, I can look into your eyes, and she even said it. She was like, the last time I saw that look in somebody's eyes was my son's father the day that he left and never came back. Like I literally see death in your eyes. She was like, I don't know what you got going on. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what's got going on. But she was like, you're scaring me. You need to figure it out because she was like, I can't afford to lose another another person of my kids. I can't do it. So I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, so that was that night, and then I ended up going to bed Saturday night. I go to bed. I told her I went to bed like at 10 o'clock. Like I couldn't be awake no more. I was just tired. Like I was so physically, mentally,
Mentally,
spiritually,
emotionally drained.
emotionally, anything elite. I was exhausted and tired, and I fell asleep. I fell asleep like at 10 o'clock. I remember I passed out. And I passed out in my room, and she stayed in the living room with the kids and stuff. And sure enough, man, I remember it was 3:30 in the morning. A little backtrack. So when I was 25 years old, one of my drunken nights or partying nights, I got really high. I got really high, like I got loaded, and I ended up hitting my head on the toilet. Like I broke the toilet. Like a chunk of the toilet came out in the back of my head right here. Like still today, I'll get little like it feels like sonar vibrations, little zinging in the back of my head right here still today. Well, that happened at 3:30 in the morning. Ever since then, when I was 25 years old, I wake up every night at 3:30 in the morning. Every night. You can call me. You can call me tonight. You can call me at 3:30 this morning. You can call me at 3:30 in the morning
I'm gonna
tonight,
test it out, man.
and I guarantee you, I'll answer the phone like I will talk to you like how we are right now.
Crazy.
So fast forward to, that night, I wake up at 3:30 in the morning like I always do. And man, when I woke up that night, it literally felt everything was still. Like the house was stopped. Time stopped. Like I went outside, opened the door, couldn't hear nothing. There was no wind, there was no cars, there was nothing. There was nothing. I wait once I hear hear a dog or anything, bro. There was nothing. Like it was literally still. Like life just
Oh,
pretty much just stopped. Like the world we live in stopped, and I was there, but I wasn't there. And so I
huh.
walked the house like I always do. Walk my apartment, check on my kids real quick, make sure they're okay. I checked, all the doors and locks. And at the time, I was living at my shop, so I walked outside, checked. I walked the shop real quick. Like I said, when I was outside walking, bro, there was nothing. Like it was crazy because I couldn't even hear my footsteps, and we had pea gravel at our shop because you can hear footsteps walking on the rock. Couldn't hear nothing. There's nothing.
Jeez.
Couldn't hear anything, and so I was like, man, I don't know what. Like I wasn't scared. I wasn't excited. There was no anxiety. I literally had no feeling. I was just empty. And
Huh.
so I went back in, got me a glass of water, took me a sip, and went back to sleep. And when I went back to sleep, that was when I had the two dreams. I had the first dream was a dream of death. And it wasn't death of like physical. It was death of like emotional. It was death of like family members being outcasted, being, forgotten. Like it was a dream of like my dad kicked me out of the business, kicked me out of the family. I lost my wife and kids forever. Like my wife left. She just left. Like I couldn't see my kids. My other daughter, I completely lost all contact from her. Like her mom left. Like there was nothing. Like there was I didn't have anybody. Like, none of my family members wanted to talk to me. My brother and sisters didn't want to talk to me. The life that showed me that I was literally just bouncing from apartment to apartment, job to job, and it even showed me that there was times that I tried to kill myself, but God was like, "Nah, that's too easy. Like I'm not gonna allow you to do this because you chose the death path. You chose to stay on the path of addiction, stay on the path of this. So I'm gonna torture you. I'm gonna let you live this life because this is what you chose.
You're gonna
And
power
so I'm
through
gonna
it.
show you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you this life." And so he
Yeah.
showed me that life first. And bro, I woke up. It was crazy because I went to bed. Remember, I went to bed at 3:45. I saw the clock, and when I woke up, it was 3:30.
Same thing, like clockwork.
And I was like, "What the heck?" I know I did this. And so I got up again, did my rounds again. I walked outside and I was like, what in the world is going on? Like, and the same thing, it was quiet, it was dead, there was nothing. It was silent. And so I went back. But I remember I went to the kitchen, but my cup of water was on the table where I left it. I was like, man, I know. And so sure enough, and it had ice in it, the ice was melted. And so then I sat down for a minute, drank some water, and I was just trying to grasp what happened, trying to grasp the dream that I had and stuff. And so I was like, well, you know what? I guess I'm gonna go back to, and that's when I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to church. I'm going to church when I wake up because it was gonna be Sunday. And
Yeah.
so then I go back to bed at 3:45 in the morning. And then the second dream I had was a dream of acceptance. God showed me a life of abundance, abundance. Like
Wow.
he goes, this is what abundance is, and this is where it's at. I just need you to meet me here. I'm gonna
Yeah.
show you abundance of prosperity in your life, prosperity in your family, or prosperity in your business, and prosperity in your artwork. And I was like, artwork? Like I don't even, at the time I was like, I don't even I didn't know what he was talking about at the time. And so I was like, I was like, all right, great. It was an amazing dream, and then when I woke up, and when I woke up at 5 in the morning. I woke up. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I woke up, I was crying, I was so emotional. I was like, oh, but I was exhausted. I was completely exhausted and stuff. And I woke up real quick, had me some water, went back to bed. I was like, I'm gonna wake up at 8 and get dressed, and go to church, whatever. Anyway, so I woke up, I missed my alarm, didn't go to church. And so then me and my wife, went about our day. That day when I was walking, doing we ran some chores and stuff, something still wasn't right. Like I knew I wasn't right. Like I didn't know what was going on with me. And my wife said it again. She was like, so look, I don't know what's going on with you, but there's just something that just doesn't right with you. Like she said,
Yeah.
when I was laying next to you, like I felt you were empty. Like something was missing from you. Like I felt it. She was like, your energy was just off. Like I felt your energy was missing. There was a big part of your energy that wasn't there. And she was like, I don't know what it is, but you need to figure it out. Like, I don't know what's going on and stuff. And so I went home that day and stuff, whatever. And then uh, that Sunday night, I went to sleep. And when I was asleep in my bed, and I made the conscious decision that I was like, you know what? I want to choose life. Like I really want to see what this life's about of abundance, of choosing the good life, of choosing being the good guy, being a good man. So, my dad gets to the shop about 6:30. And dude, I was up at 5 o'clock, had all the doors open, waiting for my dad to come. My dad came to the shop about 6:30, 6:45. I talked to my dad for a little bit, and dude, I just cried. Like I've never felt so vulnerable ever in my life, and how I was able to just like bawl my eyes out with my dad. Like I never experienced that. And it wasn't until when I noticed that my greatest strength was me being vulnerable. And when I was in that vulnerability with my dad, I was able to talk to him, and we you know we healed some things and some stuff together that I was able to change my life then. Decided to change my life and to give my life up to Christ. I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a firm believer in God, but not the belief that I grew up in. I wanted to find my own belief, and I wanted to do what the right thing to do was to be a good man. And that, wa- yeah, that was Monday, August 22nd, 2009.
Unbelievable.
And
That is
from
so
that day
cool.
forward, bro, from that day forward, it was literally night and day. Like I literally transformed into I went to a new timeline. Like I was a new timeline, and I knew I was. Like I felt it. I knew I was in a different timeline. I knew from like my soul, my energy was completely different. I wasn't in the same life I wasn't in before, but I knew it was going to take work because everybody knew me what I was. But I couldn't just be like, oh, I'm a changed guy. I know I am. Like, I don't know, being in sobriety and when you finally choose that life, when you finally choose sobriety, you know in yourself, like you feel it, like I'm changed. I know I am. But the hardest part is trying to get people to understand you, believe you. But all you have to do is do the work and let them see it. Be, you have to be the work. You have to be the canvas so they can see the pain of your life and how you're changing. And that was my contract. Like I tell people, I have a contract with God. I don't have a commitment. Commitments can be broken or changed or be wavered or whatever this and that. Like I made a commitment. I made a contract. My contract is if I stay sober and I stay being a good person and being a good guy and living a good life, I know I'm going to get the good abundance that God wants me to have.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. It's an incredible transformation. How so things started feeling good right off the bat. It felt like a new life, new timeline, new everything.
Yeah.
And so when did you get into say Mean Mug Pistons and all that? Give me a little bit about that before we close up.
So, that was in '09. So from '09 till 2000, 2020, 2019, I was healing. I was in my healing phase. The first 10 years of sobriety, I knew I was in healing. I wasn't healed. I was healed, but I had to start healing. I had a really deep wound, and so I had to start healing it properly. And so for the first 10 years of my sobriety, I was just
Dealing with
healing.
the grief of your friend as well.
Yeah, just finally giving my friend, I was finally able to start processing all my emotions that I was feeling, start processing all the different emotions, start really understanding what it is to be really vulnerable and how to use it as my strength and just not thinking that it was just me being a pussy. Like I know most men when you hear being vulnerable, they think it's all about crying and being a weakling and being weak and soft, and it's not. It's not at all. Being in sobriety has taught me to be vulnerable enough to where I can recognize and see certain emotions or see how I can react a certain way, process it, and allow me to use that to better myself. So
Yeah.
fast forward to 2019, 2019, 2020, when the hype of COVID happened. So my work ended up being my rescue because I used my hands and used my craft to, uh, you know, tame my urges. I love going to work. I found joy and love fixing cars because it was like my life. I would bring people's cars in wrecked and mangled up and damaged, and I would pour my heart and soul, my craft, my trade, my skill into them to making them better, so that way people can go on with their life. And so that
Yeah.
was just how my life was. I was like,
Yeah.
I was a wreck. I was wrecked. I was damaged. So I had to remove certain things and put new things into my life and to whatever. So I had all that going. And then when COVID hit, COVID took that away because I was deemed as an essential worker. And so, but then again, nobody was driving. So there was no wrecks. So, dude,
Yeah.
I think we went like almost 3 months or 2.5 months, with me not even touching the car. Like
Wow.
I would literally would go to work in flip flops and sandals and just keep my work boots and socks in my truck or in my toolbox because I knew we weren't going to do any work. And so for like the
Yeah.
first like 2 months, I was just like hooked like everybody else on YouTube, on social media, just watching everything on my toolbox and just hanging out. And then I got to the point to where I was like, man, I can't, because I felt my fire of being in sobriety starting to dim. Like the flicker started getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to get it to where it was a spark, because once it's a spark, it takes a lot of sparks for it to get going again.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, you know what? I was like, I always told myself I wanted to get into metal art. I wanted to get into some kind of like welding art or something. And so I was like, man, you know what? I have everything. Like I had the plasma cutter, I got the welder, I got all the scrap metal, I got all this stuff I got going on. And so I started, I was like, you know what? Let me just start making things out of metal. And so that's what I started. I started making, tiki heads out of scrap metal pipes, with different things and
So
stuff.
cool. Yeah, I'm looking at them right now. There's so many cool things on here.
Yeah, this right here was the actual first thing I ever made. Was
Sweet. I was just about to ask what was the first thing. That
Yeah,
is
this was
badass.
the first one I ever made. This is actual pipe that's in an actual frame of a Suburban that goes in the front. So I cut it out because we had an old frame at the shop. So I
Yeah.
cut it out. It was like 3 feet. So I cut it out and I made 4 different tiki heads out of that. I made some other things too with it. And then I was like, man, you know what? I want something more challenging and stuff. And then I remembered a story that an old school hot rod mechanic told me when I was like 12 years old. His name was Doug. He told me that in the 60s, there was this guy that would make faces. He would put faces on pistons. Like he would carve pistons. And I remember that. I remember that story when I went home one night. I was like, man, you know what? So I went back to work the next day. And so I Googled piston art and piston faces and, piston skull pistons and on Google, and then all these stuff started popping up. And then I saw that there was a guy on Instagram that was making them. It was what's even more crazy is that his name was Doug. I was like, what the hell? So I go on his Instagram page and he goes by Piston Face on Instagram. His name is Doug Rogers. Totally cool guy. We're good friends of mine. He's actually known as the godfather of the Pistons because he got a lot of people started it because of him. And he's not the originator who made him, but he's the actual originator that kind of put him out on social media for people to start finding who was doing it. So I was like, man, you know what? Let me reach out to him. So I sent him a DM. Hey, I told him like, hey, I know this is your artwork. I'm not trying to get all the details, but it's just, is there anything that you can kind of give me as far as like materials and what tool you're using that I can try out myself, if you don't mind? And so he sent me the bare minimum. Like, this is what you need. This is what I do. And he, pretty much said, because I'm not going to tell you everything because it's a new form of art that's out, and I just don't want to give all my all my secrets out. And I was like, you know what? I'm perfectly fine with that. I was like, I can figure it out myself once I kind of figure what's going on. So I went home that night, and my wife bought me a $25 rotary I guess machine from Amazon, and it had like a flex shaft on it. I had a buddy that was a drag racer, and he had 8 pistons out of his LS motor that he gave me. He was, you can have them, and you can do whatever you want with them. So I started with 8. I started with 8 pistons, and I'm a visual learner. Like I can look at a picture or a video and see it maybe 2 or 3 times, and then I can figure it out. Like I keep going back to it, and so I kept going back to my buddy's page. And at the time, Instagram was only doing 15-second videos. So there's mainly a bunch of pictures. And so I was just looking at his pictures nonstop, copy paste, and then, or, screenshot. And I was just looking at them. And then I would just start, looking at it and figuring out what bits I could use and how to use it and figuring out how the rotation was and how to do certain things. And, I started with 1, and then I made 8, and then I made like 20. And then, no, yeah, I made 8. And then like the 9th one I made, my wife was like, why don't you post them and just show people what you're making? And I was like, nah, they're kind of ugly. I don't want nobody to really see them. I don't think they're really cool. And so, just post it. It'd be good for you. So I posted it, and dude, it took off. I got like,
That is cool.
I got like tons of likes on it. And then one of my cousins was one of my first buyers. At the time he was living in Oregon. He was like, "Cuz I'll buy it if you want to sell it." I was like, I'll give you $150." And I was like, "Damn, $150." I was like,
Yeah.
that's big. I was like, "I'll do $150." And then, plus shipping and stuff. So I made like $180 in just an artwork. And I was like,
That is
and
so
that was
cool.
the first taste of artwork, first taste of actually making something that people were gonna like the
That is
actual.
awesome. That had to be
And
so
that was the
satisfying.
abundance. That was the one thing that God showed me, the abundance of my artwork, of what it was gonna be like. And so I was like, bet. So I sold one, and then the next week somebody else messaged me, "Hey man, are you selling any? I'd like to buy one for my brother. He's in the army, and I kind of want to see if you can make one with a helmet." And so I was like, "Yeah, I can do it." So I made my first one with a helmet, and then it's also two, and then two good buddies of mine, like really good buddies of mine. They're like really successful men, like here in Austin and stuff. And they bought like number 20 and number 21, and then it just took off. It just
That's
took off,
awesome.
and then it just went off from there. There's a bunch of small little stories in between that got me to where I'm at now and stuff. And then I just made my um 585th one for are you familiar with the band Kubakan, Texas? They're a pretty up and coming, really popular hardcore metal band. You can look them up. For the actual lead singer, he's a good buddy of mine. I actually made him my 501 this past weekend. We met up at the tattoo convention, and he's also a tattoo artist, and he actually tattooed me, and I gave him one. So all those little stories in between, and me staying consistent, and me still believing in me keeping my contract, has led me to where I'm at now, to where I'm I'm a I'm a full-time artist. Like I do this full time.
It's amazing. I love it.
And so now it's switched to where people knew I was a body man, but didn't know I did art. Now they know I do artwork and made these mean mugs, and don't know I'm a body man. So now it's like, oh, I didn't know you worked on cars, or I didn't know you paint cars. And I'm like, yeah. That's where the other part of abundance came into factors, when that was one of my dreams of being known for. I wanted to be known for my art rather than being known as an auto body mechanic, which is nothing wrong
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
My dream was, I wanted to be known for my art rather than being an auto body mechanic.
Because the art comes from the heart for you, it seems like. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. I've just been looking at some of the stuff and I'm just blown away by how creative they are. I mean, gosh, it's
Yeah.
amazing. So you've done over 585 pieces. That is crazy.
Yeah. I got it right here. Let's see.
Yeah, show some more examples and let me know how people can find your
Actually
stuff.
it was 581. I just did.
81. That's
Yeah.
crazy. So, and you're making Mean Mug Piston t-shirt themes as well. How can people
Yeah.
find those?
So now that, my following's pretty up there now. Is rising. We went ahead and opened up an apparel line, to where I sell like hats, shirts, hoodies. And then my wife, none of this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for her, really. And she's like the real backbone of who I am, and her constantly, being by my side, and making sure that I wasn't gonna quit, and all that stuff. And I owe a lot to my wife, not just to God, but I'll owe it to her too. And so she also wanted to do a line called Mean Mug and Mama. So we have a line for the ladies, to where it's, we offer like, all the comfort, all the shirts and hoodies and sweatshirts that women like, that they're always wearing. But the line is called the Mean Mug and Mama. Not MOM, it's MAMA, because it's like mama, like, there's different types of mamas. There's actually like mamas that are like have kids, and then there are mamas that are business women. Like, like, damn, and there's some hot mamas, and there's stuff like that. So she wanted to start targeting those ladies, and now we have that, and we're gaining pretty good traction and stuff. So it's going pretty
Awesome.
good, man.
Yeah. Looking at some of the shirts, they're really cool, really creative.
Yeah.
Awesome. How can people reach you then if they want to look for those shirts and all that, and Instagram and all that?
The shirts and stuff are on my Shopify account. It's a Me Mug Pistons on Shopify.
Okay.
Then if you actually, the only way you can actually get you or order an actual Me Mug Piston is that you have to direct message me personally, because that's the only way you can get them, because they're all one off. They're all custom made from the beginning. None of them are pre-made. None of them are like, I don't have a stock like on the shelf. Each one is one off made, like 100%. Like you
That's
message
awesome. So
me,
no replicas or anything.
yeah, you message me, we go over what you want, what type of piston you want, what type of bullet casing, or if you want a socket, like a ratchet socket, that we go over all of it. And then once we finalize what you want, then I go ahead and put you on the list. And then once I get to it, I create it. And once it's created, then I send it to you.
Wow, I love it. Okay, I might have to look into getting one. These are
Yeah,
so
man.
cool. So what? The Mean Mug Pistons on Instagram as well.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
I'm on all the major platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Awesome.
And I do have a Threads. I have a YouTube channel, but I haven't really focused on that yet, just because that's like that's a whole nother league. And now that I have time, I'm actually going to start targeting my YouTube channel to where I might be doing a little bit more kind of like how-to videos, but I just don't know yet. Just because the type of work that I do, like my actual me mugs, the detail and stuff, like there isn't a lot of people that are doing it. Actually, there isn't any. There's like maybe one other guy that kind of has close to what I got, but he's a good friend of mine. But we just don't want to put it on YouTube yet, because people will do it for the wrong reasons. Like they just want to do it for the money, and we both are in agreement with each other of like, we're basically both doing it just to keep ourselves at ease, and just to, for the love of the art. That's why we don't do the YouTube channels and stuff.
For sure, for sure. And I saw that you did some. You were wearing some Sober Strong. I do some work with them. How do you feel about that brand?
It's a good brand, man. I really love his what he's doing and stuff. His actual apparel is pretty badass. Like I got a shirt from him and stuff. I love the quality of it. Everything's really good and stuff.
Yeah, he's
I like
awesome.
it
Rocking their
because,
hat right now.
yeah, I have the actual his banner up there on top. I like it. I like it too because it's not your normal typical like sobriety company. Like far as
Yep.
like
Got this.
yeah. It's not your typical sobriety company and stuff. Like he really like focuses on things that that most people don't want to conversate or have conversations about and stuff.
Exactly. He's real. He's the real deal. Just donating to treatment centers and all that. The clothing's a good quality. So I love working with them. It's an amazing brand. So that's cool. So also, yeah, so Mean Mug Pistons. That's how you can reach James, or do you go by Jimmy or
I
James?
go
What do
with
you prefer?
Jimmy.
Jimmy. Okay, that's how you can reach Jimmy. If you want to order something custom, you can go to reach him through his website or DM him on Instagram. And for my listeners, to close up, what advice would you give from your experience going through everything you went through and your recovery and expressing yourself through art and all that? What advice would you give to my listeners who are sober curious right now?
Man, I guess my quick advice would be is, I think everybody's heard it, is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to choose you. You have to continually choose you. You have to continue to choose you, and you have to do what tomorrow's you wants. That's the main thing that I constantly tell myself. What does tomorrow me want? What does tomorrow me have to accomplish for me to stay sober? And if you're in a battle right now and you're trying to figure out how to stay sober or continue to day 2 or day 100, you have to tell yourself, what does tomorrow need? What does tomorrow me need? And when you realize that, you'll continue to do it. And then I always tell people too, I was like, as addicts, we did everything in the book to get high. We would do whatever we could to function high. If we were going to a party, we're going whatever, we're like, I know I'm going to get high, so I'm going to do whatever I can to stay functional. Now, if you were just to flip that and do whatever you have to do to stay sober, use the same mindset. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to stay sober. If I'm going to go to this party, I'm going to do whatever I got to do to not to drink. If I have to go to this wedding, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to stay sober. It's the same mindset, it's just flipped. You don't got to change it because people fear change. When you start, I got to change my mind. I got to change this. Don't change. Just shift your mindset to do whatever you have to do to stay sober and what tomorrow me wants me to do. That's it.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Appreciate you being on the show. That's amazing advice. And thanks for being vulnerable and sharing your whole story, man. It's been awesome talking to you.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you reaching out and doing this podcast. Looking forward to doing many more.
Thank you.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.